Hey, awesome people. Mr. C back with you for another fractions video. Make sure if you learn anything new at all, click that like and subscribe button. Join us as we continue making math understandable and challenging. This video continues with our multiplying fractions series we have going on here. We are focusing on what does fraction multiplication look like using models. This is the teaching video. We are going to be using and drawing some models to understand what does it look like when we multiply fractions times whole numbers. All right, so with all that being said, make sure you check out the description below. There is everything we've covered for second grade, third grade, and fourth grade fractions up to this point. Also, parents, teachers, in the description, you will also find a link, two links to IXL. One of them is a 7-day free trial, and the other one is a 20% off a membership for monthly or annually. Highly recommend checking that out. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I have used IXL in my classroom, and students and teachers just absolutely love it. A great way for students to get independent practice and to track their learning, so check those out. All that being said, let's jump into some problems together. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, make sure you have a growth mindset. A growth mindset means that you are looking for a challenge. Good news for you, this is a new topic we're learning, so it's going to be a challenge. Don't give up when things get hard. Know that just because you can't do something, that means that you can't do it yet. So stick with it. Mistakes equal brain growth. All right. So here we go. Let's talk about this. On the screen, we've got 3 times 1/2. And what we want to do is to draw a model to be able to understand what the answer is going to be for this problem. Eventually, I'm going to show you just how to solve it without having to draw a model. But we know here at Math with Mr. C, it's super important to be able to see the math you're doing. And that's what we're going to try to do here today. So we've got 3 times 1/2, and the way that we're going to go about to solve this is by kind of thinking through it and drawing a model. So what does 3 times 1/2 actually look like? So think about that for a second. We're going to be taking 3 and multiplying it by 1/2. Multiplication can also be described as repeated addition. So what we're going to show here is we're going to show how repeated addition gives us the same answer as this multiplication. Okay, so that's what you're going to do when you have a problem like this. We're going to draw a model, and to do so, I am going to look at these two numbers. And to draw a model, I'm going to go ahead and get a rectangle up here on the screen. To draw this model, I'm going to need 3 models. Okay, so I'm going to need 3 of the same size. So there's 2 of them. And here is, let me move those up a little bit. Give me a second. All right, so I'm going to draw 3 models. There's a second one and a third one. So we've got 3 models here. And each of these models we need to break into a half. Okay, we need to represent a half on each of these models, so let's do that. Break each of them into a half, and now let's shade in half of them, because that's what our fraction is. We had 3 whole, and we're going to multiply that by 1/2. So 3 wholes, multiply it by a half. So let's shade in half of each of these models. There we go. We can label each of them, because this is 1/2, this is 1/2, this is 1/2. Okay, keep going through it here. Now, let's think about it. How would we get our answer? Well, we've got 3 models. Each of them are broken into halves. We shaded in 1/2 of each. So let's add those up. 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2 gives us, add the numerators. Why can we add the numerators though? The reason we can add the numerators is because the denominators are all the same. Remember, we always have to check that. If they're not the same, we have an extra step to do. But they are the same, so 1, 2, 3. Do we add the denominators? No, never add your denominators. So denominator stays at 2. and we've got 3 over 2, or 3 halves. So, how do we get that, Mr. C? What does that even mean? Well, ladies and gentlemen, what you have just done is you have taken 3 and you've multiplied it by a half. You've multiplied it by a half, by a half, and by a half. And so to do that, what you've done is you've created 1 half plus 1 half plus 1 half. Repeated addition is the same thing as multiplication, and you get an answer of 3 halves. All right, think about that for a second. So, what we've done is we've taken 3 times 1 half, and there's a model that you can use. Again, I'm going to show you a really simple way to get this answer up here. But before we do that, I want to make sure you can also see the work that you're doing. Okay? So I want you to make sure you can see the work that you're actually doing. All right. Ask yourself, where did you get stuck? Where are you confused? What didn't make sense? And let's try another one. All right, here we go. Second problem on the screen here. Same thing. We're going to go through this one and try to understand what it looks like for repeated addition, because we know repeated addition is the same thing as multiplication. All right, so set this up. Let's draw a model. We've got 2 holes. I'm going to change my color to purple. So we've got 2 holes. So there's 1, and here is 2. And both of these holes are going to need to represent 2/3. Okay, so represent 2/3. So we're going to need, that's bad, there we go. Represent 2/3 on each of them. And then we're going to see what our addition expression will look like. So there's 1/3, there's 2/3, there's 1/3, there's 2/3. And again, I like to label each of them just so that way it stands out what each of these sections represents. They each represent 1/3 because our whole model is broken into thirds. So what we're doing here is we're taking 1/3 plus 1/3. So kind of going to show you 2 ways here actually. All right, so kind of stick with me on this. I'm going to kind of show you 2 ways here. So what we're going to have is we're going to have, I'm going to list them all out. 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. Okay, would you agree that that's all the thirds? There's 4 of the thirds. I wrote them all down. If we add all this up, we should get 4/3. Okay, hopefully you're agreeing with me there. Now, let's look at it as if we were looking at the actual models. Okay, if we're looking at the actual models, this here is 1/3 and 1/3, so that's 2/3. And this is 1/3 and 1/3, so that's 2/3. We add this together and we get the same thing, 4/3. Okay, so I want you to kind of see what that represents. Okay, both of these repeated additions are going to give us the same answer. Okay, both of these repeated additions give us the same thing. 2/3 plus 2/3 equals 4/3. 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 gives us 4/3. Okay, same thing. Okay, just 2 different ways you can look at it. Now, the multiplication side of things, both of these are going to represent 4/3. Okay, both of these ways of addition are going to represent 4/3. This is just the way that you can kind of think about it when it comes to that repeated addition. What you have is you have 2 whole models. You're breaking those up into 2/3 to represent 2/3 of each. 2/3 plus 2/3 gives you 4/3. Or you can think of it as 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 4/3. And again, I'm not going to quite show you just yet how to just multiply it. I want you to see the math. Okay, first I want you to see what it looks like to multiply a whole number times a fraction. And that's what we have here on the screen. All right, ask yourself a couple of questions. Ask yourself, how did we get these 2 whole models? How did we know to break them into thirds? How did we get this 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3? Where did 2/3 plus 2/3 come from? Ask yourself those questions, and if you're stuck, rewatch it, ask for some help, reach out to a parent, a teacher, send me a message. My contact information is at the end of the video. Reach out, let me know where you're stuck, what isn't quite making sense. All right? You will find in the description below, also linked right here in the top right corner, you will find the link to the practice problems video. Check that out if you're ready for a challenge to kind of push yourself a little bit more. Also, in the description below, I've mentioned it already, parents, teachers, check out that iExcel code. I've got two different links, one for a 7-day free trial and another one for 20% off a membership, whether that's monthly or annually. I love iExcel. It is a great program to use to help supplement your teaching. Great independent practice for students, so check those out. All right. As always, ladies and gentlemen, if you learned anything new, click that like and subscribe button. Join us as we continue making math understandable and challenging. That's all I have for you. Mr. C, out.